All right, get ready, because today we're going deep, really deep, into Samadhi. We're talking about, a superconscious state, a level of awareness that goes way beyond, our everyday experience. Think enlightenment, but with like a practical roadmap, thanks to Swami Vivekananda's Raja Yoga.
Yeah. You know what makes this so interesting?
Right.
Well, Vivekananda doesn't just, describe this state of samadhi that sounds almost impossible to achieve. He actually lays out the steps to achieve it through the practice of Raja Yoga. And he says it's not just for, monks on mountaintops. It's a potential that's within every single one of us.
So we're not like just defining words here, right? We're talking about unlocking some serious hidden potential. But before we, get too far ahead of ourselves, can we maybe back up a bit? I know Vivekananda talks about these, three planes of mind, conscious, unconscious, and superconscious. But for someone who, hasn't spent years meditating in a cave, what's the key difference that makes this superconscious state so unique?
I think it's the transformative impact. We all know what it's like to be conscious, and we accept that our body does things unconsciously all the time, like digesting food, without us even having to think about it. But Samadhi's different.
How so?
People don't just emerge from this state feeling, rested. They come out fundamentally changed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Vivekananda actually uses this example of someone who enters Samadhi, a fool, and comes out a sage. And, that's not a power nap. That's a complete rewiring of one's understanding.
Now you're talking, like a total upgrade. But why? Like, why is this state so important? Why should we even care about, achieving something that sounds so, well, unattainable?
Well, Vivekananda's argument is pretty fascinating. He acknowledges the power of reason,
right,
but he also points out its limitations.
Oh, okay.
There are some questions that logic alone just can't answer.
Like what?
Questions about, the existence of God, or the immortality of the soul. The basis of morality. These are questions that humans have wrestled with for millennia. And reason alone hasn't given us, definitive answers.
Yeah, tell me about it. I feel like I've had those, late night existential debates more times than I can count. But if reason can't provide all the answers, where do we turn? Is that where the superconscious comes in?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Vivekananda says that the source of those higher truths, those answers that go beyond the limits of logic, they lie within us.
Oh.
Accessible through the superconscious state.
Yeah.
It's like we have this incredible wellspring of wisdom inside, but we need the right tools to, tap into it.
So are you saying we're all like walking around with a potential for enlightenment just waiting to be activated? But if that's the case, why aren't more people experiencing this? It can't be that easy.
Right. Well, Vivekananda does offer a word of caution.
Yeah.
He used the example of Muhammad, who he acknowledges received profound inspiration, but whose teachings also, led to fanaticism and harm.
Yeah.
His point is that stumbling into superconsciousness without the proper preparation and guidance can be dangerous. It's like accidentally ingesting a really powerful psychedelic without, the right mindset or support. The experience can be overwhelming and even, destructive.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not, just about reaching the superconscious state. It's about getting there safely, effectively. Is that where Raja Yoga comes in?
Yeah, precisely. Raja Yoga is like a systematic scientific approach to exploring the superconscious realm. It emphasizes ethical conduct, mental discipline, and specific techniques for safely and intentionally cultivating samadhi. It's not about, forcing your way into an altered state. It's about cultivating the right conditions within yourself for that state to naturally emerge.
That sounds way more appealing than accidentally tripping into a spiritual crisis. But how does Raja Yoga actually work? What are the steps involved in this ancient practice?
Well, one of the core elements of Raja Yoga is the practice of dhyana, which is often translated as meditation. But it's not just about, sitting cross-legged and trying to empty your mind. Vivekananda uses the terms shabda, artha, and jnana to describe the process of perception and understanding that happens through dhyana.
Okay, now you're using the big words. Break those down for us, mere mortals.
Okay. Think of it like this. Shabda is the initial sensory input. What we see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. Artha is the meaning we create from that sensory input. So how we interpret it based on, our past experiences and beliefs. And jnana is the the deeper knowledge, the true understanding that emerges when we go beyond those initial layers of perception through focused meditation.
So it's like peeling back the layers of an onion. We start with like the basic sensory experience, then we add our interpretations, and through dhyana we reach a level of understanding that goes beyond our usual like filters and biases.
Exactly, and this is where things get really interesting because Vivekananda says that that those deeper truths, the answers to those big questions that reason alone can't grasp, they're accessible through jnana, through this process of deep focused meditation. It's like um, we have the potential to perceive reality as it truly is, unfiltered by our limited human perspective. Whoa. Okay, now that is a concept worth unpacking further. But before we get too deep into the mechanics of meditation and the nuances of jnana, maybe we could take a step back and look at the bigger picture here. What does this all mean for us in the real world? How does cultivating superconsciousness actually change the way we live our lives?
That's a great question, and one that Vivekananda addresses head on. He doesn't see samadhi as an escape from the world, but as a way to engage with it more effectively, more compassionately. It's about recognizing our inherent connection to all beings, and acting from a place of greater understanding and wisdom. So it's not about achieving this blissful state and then just checking out of reality. It's about like integrating that wisdom into our everyday lives, and using it to make a positive impact on the world around us.
Absolutely, and that's where the concept of unselfishness comes in. Vivekananda says that true enlightenment, true samadhi, isn't about personal gain, but about selfless service to others. It's about transcending, our ego-driven desires, and acting for the benefit of all beings.
That's a powerful idea, that true fulfillment comes not from like pursuing our own selfish interests, but from dedicating ourselves to something, larger than ourselves. But if that's the ultimate goal, how do we even begin to cultivate that kind of unselfishness? Is it something we can just like decide to do, or is it a gradual process that unfolds as we, progress on the path of Raja Yoga?
That's a question worth exploring further, and I think it's a perfect place to pause for a moment.
Okay, so before we pause there, we were really starting to get into some pretty profound territory, weren't we? This whole idea that that samadhi isn't just about like personal enlightenment, but about cultivating unselfishness and acting for the benefit of others. It's a beautiful concept, but I gotta admit, it also feels a bit daunting. How do we even begin to shift from a mindset of me to a mindset of we?
Well, it's a journey. It's not a switch we can just flip. But Vivekananda, he offers some insights into how this transformation happens, through Raja Yoga. And remember, this path isn't just about meditation. It's about ethical conduct, self-discipline, and a deep understanding of our place in the universe.
So like building a foundation of ethical behavior is actually part of the path to superconsciousness. That's not what I usually picture when I think of like meditation and enlightenment.
Yeah, well, it makes sense, when you think about it. If samadhi is about, transcending the ego and realizing our interconnectedness with all beings, then acting in, harmful or selfish ways would directly contradict that goal.
Okay, yeah, that's starting to click for me. So it's not about, becoming some kind of like saint overnight, right? It's about gradually aligning our actions with our understanding of this deeper reality. But how does that actually, play out in everyday life? What is ethical conduct? What does it look like in the context of Raja Yoga?
Well, Vivekananda outlines 5 yamas, or ethical restraints as the foundation of Raja Yoga.
Those are
ahimsa, nonviolence; satya, truthfulness; asteya, non-stealing; brahmacharya, continence; and aparigraha, non-covetousness.
Wow, those are some pretty big concepts. So we're talking about more than just being a good person. It's about like cultivating specific qualities that directly counteract our ego-driven tendencies. But how do these restraints actually help us on the path to samadhi?
Well, think about it this way. Each of these yamas is like a tool for chipping away at the walls of our ego.
Okay.
When we practice nonviolence, we're loosening the grip of anger and aggression.
Right.
When we cultivate truthfulness, we're letting go of the need to to manipulate or deceive.
Right.
Each yama, helps us to refine our behavior and create, more space for compassion and wisdom to emerge.
Yeah, I see how this all ties together. It's like by refining our actions and aligning them with these, ethical principles, we're creating the inner conditions necessary for super consciousness to blossom. It's a process of like inner purification, not just a mental exercise. But I have to ask, what about inspiration? Earlier we touched on this idea that great spiritual figures throughout history were able to tap into the super conscious. Does Raja Yoga address that aspect of the journey?
Oh, absolutely. In Raja Yoga, inspiration is seen as a direct result of cultivating, the superconscious state. As we refine our awareness through meditation and ethical conduct, we become more receptive to higher truths and insights that flow from that, deeper level of consciousness.
So it's not about like passively waiting for inspiration to strike. It's about actively creating the conditions within ourselves for that inspiration to flow.
Exactly. Remember those three stages of perception we talked about: Shabda, Artha, and Jnana.
Yes.
As we progress through those stages in our meditation practice, we become more sensitive to the subtle vibrations of the universe. It's like tuning a radio to pick up a specific frequency.
Okay, so we're not just sitting around like hoping for a lightning bolt of inspiration.
Right.
We're actively training our minds to perceive those, subtle signals that are always present, but often, drowned out by the noise of our everyday thoughts and distractions. But how do we know if we're how do we know if we're on the right track? What are some signs that we're actually progressing on this path of Raja Yoga?
Well, one of the most tangible signs is an increase in inner peace and clarity.
Okay.
As we cultivate the yamas and refine our awareness through meditation, our minds naturally become more still, more focused. We
Yeah.
experience fewer moments of anxiety and stress and mental chatter.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like all the noise and chaos of, our usual mental state starts to settle. And we're able to see things more, more clearly, more objectively. But is that all there is to it? I mean, is Raja Yoga just about achieving, a state of inner peace?
Well, inner peace is a significant benefit. It's not the ultimate goal. Remember, the Samadhi is about accessing a higher state of consciousness, a level of awareness that goes beyond the limitations of our ordinary minds. And from that state, profound insights, creative breakthroughs, and a deep understanding of our true nature can emerge.
It sounds like we're talking about, more than just personal transformation here. We're talking about unlocking a level of understanding that could potentially change, the way we see the world, the way we interact with each other, and even the way we approach global challenges.
Precisely, and this brings us back to to the concept of unselfishness.
Mm-hmm.
As we progress on this path, our motivation shifts from self-interest to a genuine desire to contribute to the well-being of all beings. We begin to see the interconnectedness of all things and act accordingly.
This is all starting to, feel very profound, but also a bit overwhelming. We've covered a lot of ground, haven't we? Ethical conduct, meditation, inspiration, unselfishness. It's a lot to take in. How do we even begin to put all of this into practice?
Well, that's a great question, and one that we'll explore further after a short.
So, if we've been talking about some really big ideas, right? Raja Yoga, superconsciousness, ethical conduct as this path to deeper understanding.
Right.
But I think a lot of our listeners are probably wondering, the same thing that I am. Like, how do we actually, how do we put all of this stuff into practice? Where do we even start?
Well, it's a common question, and the beauty of Raja Yoga is that it offers a structured approach, a step-by-step path that we can follow. Remember, Vivekananda emphasized that this is a scientific system, not just vague, mystical pronouncements.
Okay, so it's like, like a roadmap for inner transformation. But if we're talking about practical steps, doesn't that contradict this idea of samadhi being a state beyond, beyond reason?
Yeah, it is kind of a paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
But think of it this way: we use reason to create the conditions for that transcendence to occur.
Mm.
It's like like building a rocket to reach outer space. We need engineering and logic to get us there. But the experience of weightlessness is something beyond those initial calculations.
Yeah, I can see that. So where does this rocket ship of Raja Yoga start? Like what are the the initial steps we can take to begin cultivating this this super conscious state?
Well, it starts with those 5 yamas we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
Nonviolence, truthfulness, non-stealing, continence, and non-covetousness.
Yeah.
These aren't just abstract moral principles. They're practical guidelines for how we interact with the world and with ourselves.
So if someone's listening to this and feeling feeling inspired but also a bit overwhelmed, where would you recommend they begin?
I would say start small. Choose one yama that resonates with you and make a conscious effort to incorporate it into your daily life. For example, if you choose ahimsa, nonviolence, maybe you start by being more mindful of your speech, avoiding harsh words or gossip or negative self-talk.
Yeah.
Or maybe you commit to a week of eating a plant-based diet, extending that principle of nonviolence to other living beings. I like that, starting with something tangible, something you can actually, put into action right now. It makes this whole idea of ethical conduct, feel less intimidating and more like a, practical experiment in self-improvement. But what about the meditation aspect of Raja Yoga? Where does that fit in? Well, meditation is the heart of the practice, and it's where we really start to cultivate, that focused awareness that allows us to access those deeper levels of consciousness.
Mm.
But again, start small. Even 5 minutes a day of, sitting quietly, observing your breath can make a difference.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get they get discouraged because they have this idea that meditation means like sitting perfectly still for hours with zero thoughts entering their mind.
Right, right.
But it sounds like you're saying it's more about consistency and gradual progress than achieving some kind of like instant Zen state. Right?
Exactly. The mind is naturally active. It's going to wander. The key is to simply observe those thoughts without judgment and gently guide your attention back to your breath or your chosen object of focus.
So it's like like training a muscle. The more we practice focusing our attention, the stronger that muscle becomes. But how does this connect to the ultimate goal of samadhi? Is it just a matter of like meditating for long enough and eventually bam we achieve superconsciousness?
Well, it's not quite that simple, but there is a direct connection. Remember those 3 stages of perception: Shabda, Artha, and Jnana.
Yeah.
Through through consistent meditation practice,
Right.
we train our minds to move beyond those initial layers of sensory input and interpretation and access that deeper level of understanding, that jnana, where those profound truths and insights reside.
So it's like by quieting the mind and refining our awareness, we're creating the space for those higher levels of consciousness to emerge. It's not about forcing anything. It's about cultivating the right conditions. But if samadhi is such a transformative experience, why isn't everyone doing this? What are some of the the obstacles that people typically encounter on this path?
Well, I think one of the biggest obstacles is our attachment to the material world. Our desires and cravings that keep us constantly seeking happiness outside of ourselves.
Yeah.
We get caught up in the pursuit of possessions, status, relationships, thinking that those things will bring us lasting fulfillment.
Yeah.
But true happiness, the kind that samadhi points to, is an inner state. Independent of external circumstances.
It's like we're constantly chasing after shadows, mistaking those fleeting pleasures for true happiness. But if we're so deeply conditioned to seek happiness, outside of ourselves. How do we break free from that pattern? How do we even begin to shift our focus inward?
Well, that's where the practice of Raja Yoga, with its emphasis on ethical conduct and meditation, becomes so crucial. As we cultivate those yamas, we start to loosen the grip of those desires. As we refine our awareness through meditation, we begin to experience glimpses of that inner peace and joy that are true nature, and those experiences can be they can be incredibly motivating, encouraging us to keep going on this path.
So it's like a positive feedback loop. The more we practice, the more we experience those benefits, and the more motivated we become to continue the practice. But let's be realistic here. This is a lifelong this is a lifelong journey, right? We're not gonna achieve perfect enlightenment overnight.
Absolutely. Raja Yoga isn't a quick fix. It's a process of continuous self-discovery and refinement. But that's also what makes it so fascinating and rewarding. It's a path of constant learning, growth, and transformation.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. I feel like I've gained a whole new understanding of not just what samadhi is, but how it's relevant to our lives. Even if
Mhm.
we're not aspiring to be monks or mystics, we all have the potential to tap into this super conscious state, and the tools of Raja Yoga offer a practical way to do just that.
And remember, it's not just about personal transformation. It's about creating a more compassionate, just, and enlightened world. As Vivekananda said, the goal of mankind is knowledge. It is through knowledge that self-emancipation is possible, and perhaps through the widespread cultivation of superconsciousness, we can create a world that reflects that knowledge, that wisdom, and that interconnectedness that Samadhi reveals.
That's a beautiful vision, and one worth striving for. So, to all our listeners out there, I encourage you to keep exploring, keep practicing, and keep diving deep into the mysteries of your own being. As we've learned today, the journey itself is the reward, and the potential for transformation is limitless. And